I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
I have a dream. But what does this dream really mean? Are dreams really good if they force detriment onto others? The world order has naturalized logics of elimination, genocide, slavery, and murder in order to sustain and grow themselves. And while the American dream as an ideal is great, the opposite is seen in various parts of the global south, where exploitation reigns supreme. Therefore, the generation of this world order begs to question, whose dream really is it? While the American dream may seem great in principle, the dream is nothing more than a guise of opportunity that maintains the logics of sacrifice and colonialism worldwide, exploiting people of color in the United States, Palestine, and the Congo. If you had to criticize the American dream, how would you criticize it?
The dream is not equally accessible to everyone. Systemic inequalities in education, healthcare, and housing often limit who can truly achieve it.
For example, if there was a poor community, do you think it would be hard to uplift that community?
You can do it, but it's much harder than another person coming from a good financial background, of coming from white background, who already have that base.
Jim Crow may have ended, but the new Jim Crow has come to replace it. Since the 1970s, racism has remained intrinsically tied to the war on drugs and the secret era of mass incarceration. Michelle Alexander, a highly acclaimed civil rights lawyer, advocate, and legal scholar who once taught at Stanford Law, noted that as many as 80% of young African American men now have criminal records and are thus subject to legalized discrimination, actually being denied the ability to obtain employment, housing, and public benefits, much as African Americans in the Jim Crow era. Furthermore, the war on drugs was racist at its very conception. It was not until after the drug war was announced in 1982 that crack began to spread rapidly. Instantly, the media was saturated with images of black crack whores, crack dealers, and crack babies, resulting in the racialized over-policing and criminalization of people of color. Mass incarceration has not occurred without precedent, of course. Rather, it has been born out of disposability politics that renders people of color useless to the American settler colonial project. Callie Acuna, the co-writer of the Every 28 Hours report, states that at one point in time, people of color were at the center of material production. But what mattered was the black labor power and how it could be harnessed and controlled, not African humanity. In fact, it is during this time that the black surplus, a group of black people whose labor was found disposable to the transnational capitalist class, was a force that the TCC had to deal with, and they did so by granting more jobs to white people. White solidarity is key to combat black labor. After all, the development of mass incarceration was a means to expel and manage the black surplus while allowing white labor to reign supreme, and while also allowing the prison industrial complex to exploit black prisoners to a large extent. Slavery is legal as long as they are prisoners. And the American dream is for white American settlers. It's plain and simple. It'll never apply to people of color insofar as the means in which settlers attempted to accumulate wealth was always dependent upon exploitation, criminalization, or marginalization of black and native peoples, whether through Jim Crow or slavery, mass incarceration, and racist media. This new system of racial control operates through a complex web of laws, media portrayals, and systemic discrimination that disproportionately affects black and brown communities. The American dream is built on the brutal exploitation of those in the global south. The wealth and opportunities enjoyed in the United States are inseparable from the exploitation and suffering of people across the world. We must look beyond borders and lines. It is time to visualize the parasitic relationship that sustains it all. Torquil Lawson, a writer with a master's degree in political science, illustrates how the lifestyles of those in the global north are intrinsically linked to that of global exploitation. The capital accumulated across the global north is essentially extracted and withheld from the global south. As Neel Aparanji once said, the global south is just overexploited. The system of global exploitation is not just an economic phenomenon, it's a political one. The American state, in its quest for dominance, relies on the continued subjugation of people in countries like Palestine, Congo, and India. From the violence in Palestine, where the US supports Israel's occupation, to the resources extracted from the Congo to fuel the Western tech industry, the reality is clear. The American dream is sustained by the suffering of others. Take the case of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Known for its vast mineral wealth, minerals essential for the global technology and renewable energy sectors, the Congo remains one of the poorest countries on earth. Western corporations extract these resources with little regard for human rights, using cheap labor and causing irreversible environmental damage. These resources are integral to the devices we use every day, or cornerstone of the parasitic relationship that sustains the US economy. The global supply chains that provide cheap goods to the global north are also the same ones that perpetuate exploitation in the global south. In countries like Indonesia, garment workers toil under horrific conditions to produce clothing sold cheaply to Western consumers. The workers who make the cheap clothes that fuel the American dream are paid poverty wages, denied basic rights, and live in conditions unfit for human dignity. This parasitic relationship extends far beyond the labor force. It is embedded in the very structures of the global capitalist system, where the United States and other wealthy nations benefit from cheap resources, cheap labor, and systemic inequalities that result from colonial history. It is not a coincidence, after all, that these regions, Palestine, Congo, India, Indonesia, are some of the most exploited areas in the world. They are integral to the maintenance of the American dream. To dismantle this imperial mode of living, we must first recognize its existence. We must confront the reality that the American dream is built on the exploitation and injustice. Only through solidarity, compassion, and systemic change can we begin to build a world where the benefits of prosperity are truly shared by all, and not just by white settlers. From the new Jim Crow and the war on drugs that devastate communities of color in the United States, to the parasitic global system that extracts wealth from the global south, the dream of prosperity, for some, has come at the expense of others. The resources that fuel the American economy, whether in the form of labor, minerals, land, are systematically taken away from those least able to defend themselves. This American dream is not just about the individual achievement, it is a collective project of empire and exploitation. It is sustained by the suffering of those in places like Palestine, the Congo, India, and Indonesia, and as long as the system of exploitation persists, the dream will remain a nightmare for millions. It is only by recognizing the violence and injustice that sustain the American dream, and by building a global movement rooted in justice, that we can begin to create a world where the American dream is truly for everyone. Only then can we hope to turn this dream from a myth into a reality. And as of right now, it is a dream for some, but a nightmare for others.